Hi, I'm Paul Wilkinson and we're filming from my home in Kathmandu. I'm going to introduce you to a few different types of singing bowl. There's actually about 30 or 40 different types in overall different shapes, all of which have different qualities. I've got about half a dozen or so of those forms here, so I'll just give you a little introduction to the different shapes and sizes and a little bit of background about some of them, and then maybe give some playing examples as well. So this is extremely rare and very large Buddha bowl. You can see the shape. It's got this wonderful round shape. You may have seen pictures, tanka paintings, of the Buddhas with the begging bowl, or sometimes this shape as well with the healing herbs inside. And this one's several hundred years old. It's got this lovely ridged decorative edge and these little dot designs and some triangular dot designs coming down, and this is called magic eye. It's like a sort of protective. This unfortunately has a little bit of damage underneath, but I bought it anyway just because it's such a rare and such a good example, and I'm going to see if I can get that fixed. But it still doesn't really affect the sound, so it's still worth having. So it's a little bit hard to play with the leather, but a very nice solid sound. So that's a Buddha bowl. So this is a shallow dish type bowl. These have quite a open sound. They're a little harder to play than normal. Sometimes they have decorative rings here, or I don't know if I have another one here. And sometimes they're shallow like that. Quite often they have a thicker rim to the top. This is a Naga bowl, and I've got 3 different sizes here to show you the differences. So that's a normal large bowl. That's actually a little bit larger than a normal large bowl. That's a small Naga bowl. So these are different from most of the bowls because they have a handle for gripping at the bottom, and sometimes they have these decorative lines around the top, and they sometimes have writing or pictures, usually of water, so water birds and fish, lotuses, and writing in what we've now discovered is an ancient form of Bangladeshi dialect. About 25 years ago, when they acquired the name Naga bowl, we thought they were coming from Nagaland. They're still a very rare type of bowl, but 25 years ago they were you'd find maybe 1 or 2 in a year, and so they were called various things like panic bowls. By Frank Perry, for instance, calls them panic bowls. Stand bowls because they had a stand, but they acquired the name Naga bowl because we thought they were coming from Nagaland, and also because Nagas are the snake gods and goddesses of the waterways and of the underworld, and they often had this water symbolism in the designs. So one of the amazing, wonderful qualities about these is you've got all that manoeuvrability of being able to move the bowls around into the space or move them over someone when you're doing a healing. And they also have a very long sustain. So if you were doing a healing, you'd be able to move the ringing bowl over someone's body as they're laying down, or with the leather you've got the deeper notes. So the leather dampens the high frequencies and gives you the deeper notes. So usually the big bowls, the medium bowls and the smaller bowls are about an octave apart. So it's even possible to put together octavized sets. I'll show you something interesting. If I... Oh, I'll do it in a different bowl. And if you had another bowl ringing, so depending on how you're on the tuning, if you had a bowl that was the same note, you might have something which is an octave apart, so maybe a fifth octave and a fourth octave. You would be able to and you get these interesting, you hear the wong wow. So there's all sorts of interesting things like that you can do. Here's a small one. So with a much higher frequency. All of these are rare, but the smaller bowls and the medium bowls are much less frequent to find than the big bowls. But these are particularly prized by sound therapists because of the long sustain and the ease of use. So of the big bowls, you have to, this is something else I'll show you first. So of the big bowls, you have two different types of shape. Primarily, there are other shapes as well, but the two main things to look for. This one has a straight edge, and often in the Himalayas, I'm not really sure quite why, but they think of the ones with the straight rim as being masculine, and the others, the ones like that, being feminine. When they have the straight sides, they tend to have a deeper note for the size of the bowl. This is an extraordinarily large bowl. It's about 14 inches, and they get very, very rare when you get above about 11.5 inches, 11 inches. And once you get to about 12 inches, they get exponentially harder to find and more collectible and also more valuable. That has an absolutely wonderful sound. So when they have this sort of very deep frequencies inside, you can, I'm just going to show you something else first. I'll show you that. When they have the very deep frequencies, the deeper the frequencies, the larger the ripple patterns, the cymatic patterns in the water. So this is a little bit smaller, but you hear it's a lot higher note for the size of the bowl. So, and then this is the same style of bowl, but with a much thinner. And there's a few other shapes of these, but that's the same, stylistically it's the same shape. You hear it because of the thin sound. You've got a little bit more wavering quality in the note, and I'll show you the water patterns. I don't know if this will pick up because of the. I shouldn't really be playing it at this angle. I'm just trying to get the camera to be able to see the water vibrating. But these are absolutely amazing when you're doing sound therapy. Maybe you have them at the top and the bottom of the bowl and of the person laying down, and the sound waves travelling back and forth through the body. So there are other things like, so this is a Lingam bowl, and it's by far the rarest of all the different types of bowl. It has a raised lingam for the masculine, and then the bowl shape itself is the feminine, so it's like the womb. And at some point I'll make a separate video for these, but the lingam bowl, this one has like a sort of Arabic writing. I found that that's actually Farsi, and you can play that in the normal way, and you can also play it like so. I learnt that from Michael Ormanston and his wife Candida, and they're extraordinary sound therapists. I really recommend them, and they're also probably the best overtone singers I've ever heard. So really just amazing, very rare shape. These are extraordinarily rare, so it's quite unusual for me to have these. I have a few in my collection, but they're just extremely rare to find. So actually I'll say a little bit more about that. So in the Far East and in Hinduism in general, you have the Shiva lingam and the yoni vessel. So you've got the masculine, the symbol for the masculine as the primal energy, the fertilizing, activating force, and then the feminine is seen as the womb, or the reproductive, generative quality of nature. So you've got sort of activity and nature acting together. So within within the symbolism, you have the lingam is the activating force, and the bowl itself is the feminine. And so these are used in marriage rituals. Obviously the Shiva lingam came from the time before Islam came into India, but these rituals have carried over into the Muslim communities, and the writing, you have a number of different types of dialect on the lingam bowls, but it's usually an ancient form of Farsi. So I've had that checked out with a number of different mullahs in Kathmandu, and also with friends, linguist friends, and with people from Iran. With the Arab conquests of India, it came in through the Mughal Empire, and is still in parts of Pakistan. And so, for instance, my Muslim carpenter who comes from India, he could read it and pronounce it and write it, but he didn't know the meaning. So he had enough of his, through his family background, he had enough of the language to have half of it, but he couldn't actually tell you what the words meant. So the other end of the spectrum, this is also an old bowl, but it's a much thinner design. These are quite nice, especially as travelling bowls, but they're a little bit unpredictable in the way that they hold the sound. So you've got a lot of volume for the weight. So if you were travelling with a bowl, you'd be able to maybe put your clothes and stuff in it and just have that in a rucksack. And you've got a lot of responsiveness because of the thinness of the bowl. If I play it with the wooden stick, so other things. So in general, this is slightly odd because it's got that concave edge to it, but in general the bowls with the very straight sides are from Bhutan. This again is quite a rare shape of a bowl, quite a strange, so that's probably worth me trying water in that. unusual. So some of the very old bowls have these thick rims. When the rim is as thick as that, it's extremely difficult to play. So, but they make wonderfully good struck bowls. So these sort of medium-sized bowls, that's also probably Bhutanese because of the straight sides and slightly taller. And what else have I got here? Oh, this bowl is absolutely extraordinary. I was playing earlier and I put the water from the line here to this top edge. It needs a tiny bit more. There. Let's put a little bit more in there. And I found that this worked extremely well as a talking bowl. But when they've got these rims and the decorative lines on the outside and decorative lines on the inside, it's always worth checking to see whether they have other qualities, other sound qualities. So filling the water from that rim to this top edge still needs a tiny drop more. And that shows you the optimum amount of water to get certain sonic effects. So this one works better as a struck bowl, but it does play as a playing bowl. This one is a talking bowl. So if you're playing it and then meditating, so when you're playing this and you're allowing yourself to go deep into the sound, your conscious mind pays attention to this steady, predictable side of it, and your unconscious, the more creative bit of you, is paying attention to those unpredictable patterns and trying to make sense out of it. So what happens is you end up with these two strands of consciousness travelling at once, and it produces states a little bit like lucid dreaming, like forms of trance. This was actually the way I got interested in singing bowls at the beginning, because I'm a visual artist and I'm very interested in those slightly altered states. So these are, there's a small version and a large version. You see this one's got the centric rings in the side, and these also produce this very interesting effect when you where's the water? Yep. When you have exactly the right amount of water, a little bit more, and so I again discovered this by accident. I find belief almost impossible. So I test everything. I have to discover stuff for myself. It's just a quirk of personality. But because of it, I'm very, very inquiring. I test and experiment with everything. And so what I found was that you get these interesting sonic effects when you have exactly the right amount of water lining up from the circles and the inside to the top edge, sometimes having indicators here too. I'll show you with the small one just to give you an idea. So it's like an amplification, and if we pull the water away, so no amplification without the water, and then with about the right amount of water. So that's not quite enough, a little bit more. Yeah, whoom! I've no idea why they design these bowls to do that. I had one possible insight where, I don't know if you've ever done this, but there's a form of, what's it called, where they adjust the back, I've just forgotten the word, chiropractic, called the McTimoney technique, where they have like a little clicking gun that fires a frequency at the same frequency as your nerves, and then it makes the muscles relax. And I wondered whether they were producing a particular frequency to do something. I mean, that's my best guess, but I've yet to be able to test that idea out. Really, there's a lot to be discovered with these things, because you know, it's like they need to be played and experimented with, but also they need to go into labs and recorded and so on. So, for instance, I once had a bowl which produced a standing wave in the middle and a constant stream of bubbles from the bottom, somehow separating out the oxygen and the hydrogen in the water, but with the sound waves converging on a single point. And I sold that bowl to a physicist who was very, very interested in it. This is a particularly beautiful and rare shape. It's a little bit shallower than normal. You've got this really nice top edge. There's like a micro groove running around the top, which is a form of fine tuning. A little bit more copper in this than normal. You can see the sheen of copper. And that design with the circles with a dot in the middle is called magic eye. It's like a sort of protective symbol, to protect people from sort of negative energy. Very beautiful sound. There's a really top quality, like museum grade really. So this sort of quality of bowl would normally go to a sound therapist, you know, like a professional practitioner. It's just perfect. Lovely little lines here, lots of wear, beautiful patina. These patterns sometimes emerge when you're making a singing bowl. They wrap at the point where it's molten metal. They often quench it and then they wrap it in fabric, and sometimes the fabric gets burnt away, and it goes in. The chemicals from the fabric end up going into the metal as a permanent mark. So you can see here, you see there? That's probably where hundreds of years ago, when they're making it, they wrap it up in, probably in jute, and the coarseness of the fabric has got burnt into the metal and become a sort of a permanent mark in the metal. Quite interesting. So that's a little introduction to some of the different range of bowls. I hope you found that interesting, and there's a load of other types of shapes that in time when I find them and gather them here, I'll make videos for you. So thank you very much. Do subscribe. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.